So today, 5 tips that can absolutely transform your chipping. So we're about to get into the golf season. You've had a winter, maybe you've not played as much golf, maybe you've practiced your swing but you haven't done much short game. You've got back out on the golf course and these shots are giving you a little bit of trouble. You've lost your touch, you've lost your feel, and you've potentially lost a little bit of technique. Well, today we're going to transform your chipping with 5 tips that you can use to help you get up and down from here a little bit more often. So drop down to the comments box, let me know what is the best chipping tip that you have ever had. Do you still use it now? Did it transform your game? Would love to know what you're doing on the golf course that really helps you from these situations. Drop down to the comments box, and while you're there, give it a thumbs up and give the channel a subscribe if you're not already. Would love to have you part of this community. Right, let's get started with tip number 1. So tip number 1 is just don't be a one club wonder. Get to know your bag of clubs. So many times people say to me, Chris, what club should I chip with? I can't answer that question because it just really depends on the situation. Now, for this video, we're talking chipping, which for me are very, very short shots like we've got here where I'm very close to the green. And for this type of shot, I would be using a variety of clubs. Move back another 10, 15 yards to what I call short pitch shots, and I'm probably going to be using the same club for most of this. But from here, I really need to get to know my clubs. I've got a bag full of clubs there which all do a different thing. I need to know what they do. So I've got myself here a 56 degree wedge. Now a 56 degree wedge a little bit long, might work okay from here. But what if the flag was another, 15, 20 feet further on that green? Well, here I've got my 8 iron. And you can see that ball does a completely different thing when it gets on the green. So there's not really anybody can tell you what club to use. What you need to do is just get really friendly, get familiar with all the clubs in your bag and figure out what they do. Like I said, you've got lots of options there. Your job is then to figure out on the golf course which is the best option. But don't be a one club wonder. Use all the golf clubs in your bag, get to know what they do, and vary that club based on the situation. That is the first point, so important. Unfortunately, not enough golfers do that. The golfers I see almost want to be told what club to use to take that decision away from us. We can't do that. We have to pass it back to you. You need to go and do the practice, get the information, and then make the best decision as to what club to use based on the situation that you're in. Tip number 2, set up for success. So many times when I look at a golfer chipping, before they even move the club away, I can kind of predict it's not going to be a great shot, just simply because they haven't created the right relationships around the golf ball. It's incredibly difficult from there. If you don't do that, you're just relying heavily on your skill and talent. And if you don't have a lot of skill and talent, the result is often poor. So we need to make sure our setup is correct. Now, for a chip shot, and like I said a moment ago, we're talking about these very, very short shots around the green where you would vary the club. There's a couple of things I want you to focus on. I want the sternum, so the buttons of your shirt or the zip on your top, to be slightly in front of the golf ball. The best way for me to do that is to put a little bit of weight on my lead side. So notice how that then hangs slightly in front of the golf ball and the ball would look a little bit back in the stance. That's the first thing. The second thing would be to have a little bit of lean forward in the golf club. I pretty much want the butt of the club underneath that sternum. So if we drew a line from the sternum straight through the butt of the club, they should both be in front of the golf ball. Now when I do that, I've now created a great relationship for me to be able to do a couple of things. It's enabling me to work the club a little bit more upwards in the backswing, a little bit more downwards, which helps me with the strike. I want a slightly negative attack angle here, a little bit of a downward strike. And it also helps me get my shoulders a little closer to level. That is absolutely what we need to avoid. Yet this is possibly the most common setup that we see. Ball looks back, handle is forwards, but just look at where my buttons are and the tilt across my shoulders. Really difficult to play golf from here. The club often wants to go on the inside, it stays too low to the ground, really easy to kind of hit those really poor strikes like that. So set up for success. Make sure that the sternum and the grip of the club are slightly in front of the golf ball and your shoulders are fairly level. That's the best way for you to guarantee the strike on those little chip shots around the greens. And that one almost went in. Point number 3, get in close. Don't be scared of that golf ball. This is an 8-iron. Now I wouldn't really use this for the flag that's in front of me, so if we visualize that flag being another 15, 20 feet onto that green and I decided that 8-iron was the golf club, it's a relatively long club. It's sort of getting close to the middle of my bag and it has what we call a lie angle. Now the lie angle is the angle formed between the sole of the club and the club shaft. That lie angle pretty much dictates where I should stand. The golf club is pretty much sold out, the club is at its angle and I would stand here to hold that golf club. That's great for a full golf swing, but I'm not using that golf club for a full shot. I really want a shorter shot, clearly, with a little bit more finesse, a little bit more touch. So don't be scared of that golf ball. Get yourself in super, super close. You'll notice that I've stood really close, almost like I'm putting here. Now, because the golf club's a little bit longer than I ideally like, let's go down the hand a little bit. But getting in close does so many things. The first thing it does is it starts to mean that the golf club sits a little bit more up onto its toe. That's perfect for chipping. This part of the golf club here is absolutely what we want to have interacting with the ground. We do not want the sole or the heel. It becomes a little bit more dangerous. We bring in a few poorer strikes, or the option of some poorer strikes. So standing a little closer raises the heel off, makes it much easier, and especially when that grass maybe gets a little bit longer, maybe in those fringe areas, it becomes much easier for that golf club to move through the grass without being sort of interfered with too much. The other things that it does is it helps that golf club move straighter back, straighter through. The further I stand away, the golf club naturally works on an arc. Straighter back, straighter through is going to help you control the direction. The club face is going to open and close far less. Again, that's really going to help you with the direction. You really want to get to the point where you're trying to hold these. You might read it like a putt, and having that club face open far less really, really helps that. Again, the further you stand, the more the club works inside and open, and then inside and close. Becomes more difficult to control the direction. And the final thing standing in closer does is it makes the club work a little bit more up and a little bit more down. Again, if I stand miles away, the club tends to stay much lower to the ground. So just standing in closer just does so many good things. And if you had to take just one thing from this video, that would be the one thing that I would suggest. But we're having it as point number 3, standing in much, much closer. Clearly, I'm not going to hit towards this flag here, but that's really going to help me be more consistent. As I said, clearly not going for that first flag, but that would be a pretty nice shot, low rolling to a flag which is at the back of the green. Tip number 4, keep your butt moving. Let me explain. This is what we call the butt of the club, the butt of the grip. And if we think about the shot we're trying to hit, the ball's got to carry, 3, 4, 5 paces. It's not particularly far. So I can move the club head enough distance and with enough speed to create that carry with just my wrists. So as you can see here, I'm just using my wrists, and I can probably generate enough force to make that ball carry 3 to 4 yards. When I do that, the butt of the club doesn't really move. There's not a lot of travel to it. What do we see from the best chippers? Well, from the best chippers, if I take one hand off so you can see, we would see the butt of the club traveling a much greater distance. I'm not using the wrists, I'm using the body motion to create this chipping motion. When we do that, the butt keeps moving. If it doesn't, and you're that golfer who uses lots of wrists, that's when you can easily hit those shots. Lots of wrists, you can thin it right the way through the back of the green, and unfortunately, you're often faced with the same shot again. So it's really important that we try to keep the butt moving, and in order to do that, as we said there, it's just using a little bit of body rotation, a little bit of body pivot, and that ball is only going to carry 3 to 4 yards, but it's still important that we engage that body, use the bigger muscles, take the wrists out, and that is going to enable you to hit much, much better chip shots around the green. So keep your butt moving. And finally, point number 5 is all about trying to work on your performance when you're out on the golf course. You've gone through the first 4, you've done a bit of practice, you're starting to chip a little bit better. How do you ensure that you get the ball really close and give yourself a tap in? Well, I want you to think about where your focus is. The best players who chip the ball the best, stare at the target, glance at the ball. The others, potentially in this category, stare at the golf ball, glance at the target. Have you ever seen this golfer on the golf course? Practice swings, eyes are down here. They shuffle in. There might be a quick glance at the flag, and that is about it. That's a golfer very much focused on technique, very much focused on what they're doing, often a little nervous, a little apprehensive, not confident, and they're really thinking about their technique. The best players, you watch them when they're in over the ball, they're staring at the target. They're building a picture of what they're trying to do. Where is that golf ball going to land? How high is it going to do? What's it going to do when it hits the ground? Is there any break on it? They're staring at the target. They step in, there's a glance at the ball, but it's back onto that target. They're staring at the target. They're absorbing what's out in front of you. We have to feel and judge how hard to hit the shot. How can we do that if we're not really looking at the target? Hard to look at the target to hit the ball, but our pre-shot routine, we need to be absorbing what's in front of us, starting to look at the point where we want the ball to land, starting to visualize those things that we spoke about. That is really the only way that you're going to have the best touch and the best feel. So once your technique is to a point where you're comfortable and you're striking the ball better, you're a lot more confident, make sure that you're glancing at the ball and staring at the target. So let's go ahead and hit one. Practice swings are always a good idea first. That's a great chance for you to do those things we just mentioned, where we're sort of really starting to take in what's in front of me. And then hopefully, once we've got an idea what we're trying to do, we can go ahead and execute. And it's not in, but that should be a pretty simple tapping. So maybe you've just come out of a winter. You've not really hit many shots from here. You've not had a lot of practice. A little bit rusty, techniques maybe just left you a little bit. Those 5 tips I really believe are going to get you back chipping at your best, transforming your chipping much better to have confidence that you can get up and down from there. So usual stuff is down below. Thanks for watching. There's a like button down there. Love to hear your comments. Please click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber of the channel. I really believe these videos can help you unlock your best golf and enjoy your time on the course a little bit more. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you back here again soon.